Guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Have you heard about this? Recently, a diagnosis has spread through the American political commentary. Critics of the administration find themselves accused of suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, an inability to identify or critically think about the actions of Donald Trump or his administration objectively. TDS is not the first term invented. However, like all phobias, it is an exaggerated sense of fear, making the holder unable to act rationally towards the object. Joining us to discuss just that and so much more is Dr. Carol Lieberman. Of course, she is known worldwide as America's psychiatrist and the terrorist therapist. Dr. Lieberman, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure, too.
So let's talk about this. I got to be honest with you. I was not really familiar with the Trump derangement syndrome. And I guess a lot of folks are saying that, hey, it's real, it exists, and as far as we know, for the time being, it's here to stay.
Absolutely. You know, I have been working on writing out the diagnostic classification, a detailed diagnostic classification of Trump derangement syndrome for like a year and a half. And part of why it's been taking so long, besides that I wanted to be very specific, is that people keep coming up who have it, and I want to add them to it. So I've defined a mild, moderate, and severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. And the reason why I've been doing all this is because I'm planning to soon present it to the American Psychiatric Association for inclusion in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And, you know, this is really something, I mean, we used to laugh about this. I even did interviews during his first term, and it was ha-ha, you know, Trump derangement syndrome. Well, it's not ha-ha anymore. It's ruining people's lives, the people who have it, and it's ruining the lives of the people around them, collateral damage.
Yeah, it's just really interesting, though, how all of this is playing out. I got to ask, what really distinguishes intense political disagreement from, let's say, behavior and how it can become psychologically unhealthy?
Well, first of all, my definition of Trump derangement syndrome is that it's an irrational, quasi-psychotic hatred of anything Trump, and that causes the person to feel rage and go make over-the-top efforts to destroy him and his work and those around him, like Elon Musk or Melania or J.D. Vance, for example. Now, why this is not, I've been very careful to distinguish between just political disagreement, you know, or if you're of a different political persuasion, you know, it's not about that. So, for example, I guess it would be best if I gave you some examples. In mild Trump derangement syndrome, well, first of all, the more obsessed a person is with Trump and the more actions they take because of this syndrome, the worse it is. In other words, the more it's likely to be severe. And so, for example, people with mild TDS might just throw shoes at the television screen when he's on camera. But moderate TDS, those are people who have allowed it to take over more of their life, and they actually do things like a woman who ran after a guy on a subway in New York and to get his MAGA hat, and then fell on the platform. And severe goes all the way up. I mean, we have, of course, Rosie O'Donnell, we have Ellen DeGeneres, we have Mary Trump, and we have, you know, it's all the way up to the assassins or would-be assassins. And so this is a really serious, and of course it also affects how we look in the world. People, you know, there's the internet, and people see Trump derangement syndrome, see what people are doing with Trump derangement syndrome. It's interesting. One late night host said that he feels that Trump is a bully. I mean, a lot of people who have TDS think that. And he it was triggering his memory of when he was in school and he played the clarinet and he used to be chased by bullies. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why there are people who are more vulnerable to TDS than others. So like, for example, people who had problems with authority figures when they were growing up. People who had bullies, you know, and this triggers the memory. People who, for men, it has to do with men who have low self-esteem. And they look at Trump, who is sort of the stereotypical, you know, the alpha male with everything that you're supposed to have as a male, stereotypically at least. good education, a lot of money, a lot of power, becoming president twice, separated by two terms, by a term. And so they look at their own life and they think, well, I couldn't achieve this. And they somehow blame him, project onto him their frailties, their inability to achieve these things. And for women, it's like, it started with the pussy hats. It's women who have problems with men, and where Trump would be the exact stereotypical type of man who they would hate.
Wow. It's just truly fascinating how all of this is playing out. Each level, according to you, perhaps has approximately 8 to 10 symptoms. Can you discuss some of the symptoms?
Well, the way I have written, I wrote it in a way that is the way the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual is written. In other words, you have certain, just like PTSD, where you have certain types of symptoms. And then you have to have certain symptoms in certain categories. You have to have enough of them, and so on. So, for example, as I was mentioning with mild cases, an obsession with Donald Trump and simmering anger towards anyone, even strangers who might like him. Reeling at the mention of Trump's name or songs associated with him, like YMCA and God Bless the USA, with a need to speak up with criticisms and expletives, and so on. And I said, throwing something at the TV. Bruce Springsteen is an example of mild. I had Jimmy Kimmel in mild, but he has worked his way up over this past year and a half that I've been doing this, and he to at least moderate, if not more. Then moderate cases, you would have to have at least one or more, and I didn't read you all the mild symptoms.
Sure.
We'd be here. You have to have at least one or more of the mild symptoms and 2 or more of the following moderate symptoms. So some of the moderate symptoms are: an individual's life has been overtaken by TDS, interfering with work, family, and other relationships and responsibilities, committing road rage upon seeing a bumper sticker on a vehicle promoting Trump. And there are some people who I use as examples who people will recognize, but there are some who, their names are not known, but like, for example, this woman from FEMA who told her crew not to help the people with MAGA signs in their front yard during a hurricane. Then severe, quitting one's job or leaving one's family to be able to work full-time, trying to stop Trump leaving the U.S., for severe, you have to have 1 or more mild symptoms, 1 or more moderate symptoms, and 1 or more of the following. And so there's doxing and swatting and all kinds of things. So you were asking about political. Not all the people. There are some political examples that I cite because they exemplify it very well. But it's not all people who are politicians. It's like regular people, like the woman I mentioned in the New York subway who followed this guy. First, she tried to get people on the subway to call him racist and all kinds of things, and then she followed him, off onto the platform to get the hat. I mean, this is a mental disturbance, and the reason why I'm doing it, and the reason why I want to get it in the DSM, is so that people can get treatment, and the treatment is not to. You're not going to the treatment is psychotherapy, but you're not going to be able to talk to a person and just tell them in psychotherapy, oh, you're wrong, Trump done this and that, and that's great, and don't you like that? That wouldn't work. The person would just leave. So what the therapy would work on would be the underlying problems. So like for the men, low self-esteem, for the women, their problems with men, and that's what would help them to get well.
Yet again, truly fascinating. We have been speaking with Dr. Carol Lieberman, known as the worldwide America's psychiatrist and the terrorist therapist. Dr. Lieberman, this is truly a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on The Live Zone.
Thank you.